I am going to be playing one game from each of the last 30 years. I've never beaten any of these games, and many of them I've never even played before. I'll be playing only the first hour of the game, give or take some minutes, and then deciding if I'd want to keep playing it or not. You could say that you can't judge a whole game by its first hour, and to that I say, shut up. But I do get your point, which is why I will be mostly trying to avoid super long RPGs and stuff like that for the most part. For variety's sake, I will be playing games from a bunch of different genres though. With all that out of the way, let's head back in time and get started with our first game from 30 years ago in 1995. Comix Zone, yes, that's with an X because the 90s were cool like that, is a Sega Genesis beat-em-up game developed by the Sega Technical Institute, where you play as a comic book artist named Sketch Turner, who gets sucked into his own comic book when the villain Mortis from Sketch's comic comes to life after the book is hit by a lightning bolt. Man, that has to be the most 90s storyline ever. The most unrealistic part of the story is how jacked Sketch Turner is. How do you get that buff from drawing comics all day? Seeing as though he's in peak physical form, Sketch is a pretty great fighter. He can deliver devastating combos to his enemies, he's got a pretty high jump, and he's got this little roll that can get you through tight spaces. As you go through the game, you can find items to help you out too, like dynamite and this little fist that turns Sketch into an even more buff super form that can do this ground slam move. The best item is probably Sketch's pet rat, Roadkill, which you can use to interact with the environment, like sending Roadkill to go hit a switch that you can't reach. The game has some light puzzle solving to spice things up, but the core of the game is its action. The game is pretty hard, which was pretty common for old video games in the 80s and 90s. But this game takes it a step further by making it so that attacking objects other than enemies, like boxes and doors, causes you to take damage. Listen, I'm not even gonna pretend like I didn't use cheat codes to get to some of the later levels in the game, but honestly, the gameplay isn't what drew me to this game, it's the visuals. This game has an art style inspired by American comic books of the time, and man did they do a good job of emulating that style on such limited hardware. Comix Zone even plays around with the whole trapped in a comic book aspect of the game. You move through the level by jumping between the comic book panels, and if you smack an enemy hard enough, you can knock them through the panel borders. It's all really creative and cool. I didn't find the combat super engaging, so I don't think I'll come back to this one anytime soon, but it's still a pretty cool game. Donkey Kong Country 3 is a 2D platformer developed by Rare for the Super Nintendo, where you play as Dixie Kong along with her toddler cousin, Kiddy Kong. Where are his parents? I don't know, but Dixie and Kiddy Kong are on a quest to save their friends, Diddy Kong and Donkey Kong, the protagonists from the first two Donkey Kong Country games, from the big bad King K. Rool. You play as both Dixie and Kiddy with one character taking the lead at a time. You can switch between them on the fly, allowing you to pick the right Kong for the job. Dixie is agile, light, and fast, even being able to hover across gaps by twirling her ponytail. Kiddy, in contrast, is a slow bruiser, being able to do mighty things with his impressive strength, like barrel his way through enemies. He can also do this rolling skip on the surface of water, for some reason. At certain points during the game, you'll also get to play as the Kong's animal friends, who have their own unique abilities, like an elephant that can pull in barrels and shoot water with their nose. From what I played, the level design in this game is pretty good. The levels felt unique from one another, usually focusing on a single gimmick or two, like throwing barrels at rats running on wheels to open doors, and this one level that's a race against the clock as you're constantly being chased by these, I think they're bees or something. But anyway, the levels are cool. There are a number of different secret hidden items all over these levels, like Kong letters that when assembled give you an extra life, or silver coins that you can use to play bonus games at Swanky's place. I didn't really have any major complaints during my 1 hour of playtime. The gameplay is good, the music is good, and visually I quite like it. This game continues the DKC trend of pre-rendered 3D visuals. While not impressive by today's standards, this was a feat back on the Super Nintendo, and the graphics do hold up pretty well. I like this game, and I'll probably be playing more of it later. Spy Fox and Dry Cereal is an adventure game developed by Humongous Entertainment, where you play as the titular secret agent, Spy Fox, on a mission to stop an evil goat from stealing all of the world's cow milk, which would force everyone to eat their cereal dry. Which honestly isn't that bad, by the way. This is a classic 90s adventure game, meaning you'll have to talk to a bunch of people to get information and look all over the world for items to help continue your quest. If you see something on screen, there's a good chance you can interact with it, even if it's just for a quick little gag. While these are technically pointless, they do give the world a bit more character. The world of Spy Fox is filled with talking animals done in an art style that gives off vibes of Hanna-Barbera cartoons. While the animation in this game isn't the smoothest, it's still pretty well done with a lot of charm in the way the characters move. The voice acting is pretty solid, although the low quality voice clips do hamper the experience a bit.
We presume he has valuable information on the dairy crisis. The only available picture of him is hidden in your mashed potatoes. Finding Utterly is your top priority.
He shouldn't be hard to spot.
The game is a parody of old spy films, although to be honest, I didn't find the game's jokes to be super funny. It's mostly just a lot of puns and one-liners.
I wish I hadn't left my parachute in my other tuxedo. Maybe one of my special spy gadgets will help me. This isn't such a safe bet.
I found the visual gags, line deliveries, and character designs to be where the game shines. My favorite character being the pig that you play Go Fish with. Overall, this was a fun little game. I don't think it's gonna be a long game, so I'll probably finish this one when I have some time. Thief is an immersive sim stealth game developed by Looking Glass Studios, where you play as Garrett, a hired thief who received training from a mysterious organization known as the Keepers. If you aren't familiar with immersive sims, they're games where you're given an objective and it's up to you to figure out the best way to complete that task. You're usually given a variety of different tools and abilities to reach your goal, and you can decide what route you want to take. For example, in Thief, the first level has you stealing an expensive scepter from the estate of a rich snob. You can go about getting to the scepter in a number of different ways. You can sneak past the guards, or you can do your best Green Arrow impression and pick them off from a distance with arrows. You can fight them with your sword too, but I wouldn't recommend it as Garrett cannot squabble at all. If you are inclined to fight up close, you do have a blackjack, which can knock out foes easily if you catch them off guard, but isn't quite as strong against foes that see it coming. Speaking of seeing things, there are torches all around the level. Light makes you easier to see, which is obviously not a good thing if you want to be a sneaky boy. Luckily, you have water arrows which can douse those flames and allow you to sneak around in the darkness. Don't think vision is the only thing you have to worry about though, because sound is also a factor. Different materials that you walk on will make different amounts of sound. Your footsteps will be pretty quiet on carpet, but on wood or expensive tile flooring, not so much.
Hey, what was that noise? What's going on over there?
So you have to be mindful of your surroundings and the paths that you take. Thankfully, there are numerous ways and even some secret routes to traverse the level. This game and immersive sims in general are like mini open worlds for you to play around in. Usually there's a ton of little goodies to find, side conversations to eavesdrop on, and bits of lore to uncover. I didn't manage to get very far in my 1 hour of playtime, so I may play a few more levels to see if this is something that I want to finish. Also, technically, this is Thief Gold, which is the expanded version of the game released in 1999 and not 1998, but whatever, it counts. Jet Force Gemini is a third-person shooter with a bit of platforming developed by, oh, look at that, it's Rare again, although this time they're going for a truly 3D game. In this game, you play as Juno, who is a part of Jet Force Gemini, a group of galactic protectors, along with Vela and their pet dog Lupus, as they're trying to stop the evil conqueror Mizar and his legion of drones. Along the way, you can rescue the innocent tribals who can potentially get caught in the crossfire, so make sure you watch where you shoot, because you can kill them. Finding all of the tribals will require a bit of searching, as this game is somewhat open-ended, with each area being split into segments with different paths. This game would be a fun, straightforward shooter for me if it wasn't for the controls. The controls in this game are so weird. The game has an auto-aiming feature by default, but some enemies, notably ones above you, won't be automatically targeted, so you'll have to use the game's really fickle manual aiming system. This aiming just is not precise at all. It's hard to explain it, but when you move the analog stick, it causes Juno to kind of flick their aim in one direction. You have to hold the analog stick down for a bit in a direction to get a proper turn. Also, by default, jumping and crouching is set to the C stick, or the right analog stick if you're playing on Switch Online, which is just wrong, especially for a shooter like this game. Thankfully, you can go into the options to change the control scheme to something a bit more easy to grasp, but still the aiming just did not work well for me, which is pretty important for a game like this. Unfortunately, I don't think that this is a game that I'll be coming back to. Ridge Racer 64 is a racing game developed by Nintendo for the Nintendo 64. The Ridge Racer series was originally developed by Namco, but they allowed the American branch of Nintendo, called Nintendo Software Technology, to develop their own game within the series for the Nintendo 64. Like the other Ridge Racer games, the soundtrack is good, although I don't think it's on the level of Ridge Racer Type 4, which was released 2 years earlier on the PS1. RR64 has a Grand Prix mode where you can play through a set of levels to unlock new courses and cars, and it has your other typical racing game modes like time attack and multiplayer. In order to beat a Grand Prix Cup, you need to get first place on all 3 courses of the Cup, so it is a bit strict. However, it is a lot of fun to get better at the game. Drifting took me a little while to get used to, but once you master it, it opens up the door for you to improve your times a lot. One criticism that I do have for the game is the lack of maps. I unlocked the first few cups in the game, and from what I can tell, there's only 3 maps. For example, the first map of the Novice Cup is the same map as the first map of the Intermediate Cup, which is the same map as the first level from the Expert Cup. The differences being that each cup takes you to different areas on that particular map, and each cup takes place during a different time of day. I just feel like reusing a lot of the same areas makes the game a lot less interesting, especially visually. Ridge Racer 64 is a fine racing game, but I don't see myself coming back to it. Golden Sun is an RPG developed by Camelot for the Game Boy Advance. In the game, you play as a boy named Isaac, whose village is put in danger due to a sudden rock slide causing massive boulders to rain down on the settlement. Thankfully, there are people in the village with a special power called Psi Energy that allows them to do things like hold objects telepathically and summon a burst of flames. Unfortunately, the disaster still causes the deaths of Isaac's father and the family of Isaac's friend Jenna, including her own little brother. Now, 3 years later, Isaac, Jenna, and their friend Garrett, oh hey, another Garrett, have trained up their own Psi Energy skills in the hopes of preventing a tragedy like that from ever happening again, and also stopping a group of people who are trying to use Psi Energy for their own gain. I didn't get very far in the game, which isn't too surprising given that this is a JRPG. These games are known for taking longer to finish than a master's degree, so I can't go super deep into the gameplay, but from what I experienced in the hour that I had, it's a pretty straightforward JRPG in terms of combat. You can attack, use special moves, items, etc. Outside of combat, there is quite a bit of exploration and puzzle solving to get through the first dungeon. You can use your Psi Energy to interact with the environment, which is pretty cool. This is a game that did grab my interest, so I might play through the next handful of areas in the game to see if it's something that I fully want to finish. Tom Clancy's Splinter Cell is a stealth game developed by Ubisoft, where you play as an NSA agent named Sam Fisher, as he goes on various top secret missions. It was originally an Xbox exclusive game, but again, like with Thief, I'll be bending the rules again because I'll be playing the updated PC version that was released later in 2003. Just like Thief, Splinter Cell has you sneaking your way past guards, getting rid of lights, and watching where you step to reduce sounds. But as Splinter Cell is a bit newer than Thief, both in terms of release date and its time period, it has a few more bells and whistles. Sam Fisher can shimmy up poles and hang on ledges to reach inaccessible areas, he has handy night vision goggles for seeing in the dark, and he has a gun! The wonders of modern technology. Speaking of modern technology, as you go through the missions, you talk over a comm link with various government agents who guide you through the game and give you more context as to what's going on. It is a nice way to break up the silence, give the game more character, and make the whole experience feel less lonely. Admittedly, I didn't get very far in this game. The tutorial takes like 20 minutes, so I only really got to play that in the first level. It is a pretty cool first level though. The level is crafted in such a way that if you're observant, you can find unique ways to approach getting past guards, and you are rewarded for exploring. My only major complaint is, man, the default control scheme is weird. You aim your gun with E, you jump with Shift, you go into your inventory with Control, and you sprint by using the mouse scroll wheel to adjust your speed. Honestly, I do kind of like the adjustable speed thing. It gives a pseudo-analog method of controlling your character, but still, it takes some time getting used to. I did enjoy the little of Splinter Cell that I played, so I'm disappointed that I didn't get to experience more of the game. With that being said, I'll probably come back and play a few more levels of this to really form a solid opinion of the game. Let's take a look at another Ubisoft game with Prince of Persia: The Sands of Time, an action platformer where you play as the titular prince on a quest to save the people of Azad after he mistakenly turns them into monsters by releasing the Sands of Time. This game is part platformer, and luckily the prince is incredibly agile. He can run along the sides of walls, swing off of horizontal poles, hang off of ledges. The dude is a parkour king. Just moving around in this game is so fun because of how many options the prince has for traversal. Inevitably, you will fall and die, which the game contextualizes as a future version of the prince making a mistake when telling the story of his adventures to someone.
Wait. That's not how it happened. Now where was I?
The whole game is done using this framing device, which is a fun touch. Thankfully, death is not much of an issue because even when you die, you can use the Dagger of Time to rewind time and return back to before you messed up, so you can correct your mistake. The Dagger of Time also plays a big part in the game's combat. The prince can slash enemies with his sword, block incoming attacks, and perform all sorts of dodging motions. However, enemies who have been corrupted by the sands of time can't be killed normally with your sword. Even if you defeat them, they'll just revive after a few moments. In order to get rid of them for good, you'll have to stab them with your Dagger of Time, which allows you to steal the sand that keeps them going. Collecting sand is pretty useful as it is essentially this game's equivalent of experience points. Getting more of it allows you to use your special powers more, and it lets you unlock new abilities. Some of the abilities that you can use are slowing down time and freezing enemies in time to give yourself an edge during combat. There is another part of the gameplay, and that's the puzzle solving, but I didn't really get to experience much of it during my hour of playtime. But from what I did get to play, I can say that this game is awesome. The platforming is fun, the combat is cool, the music is good, and man, the cinematography is insane. It's so stylish and over the top. You get dedicated camera angles for drinking water. This is one of those games that I wish I grew up with. I can imagine loving this game as a kid with my PS2 controller sitting in the dark in front of a CRT TV. I'm definitely going to be playing more of this one. Clannad is a slice-of-life visual novel developed by Key, where you play as a Japanese delinquent high school senior named Tomoya Okazaki. Tomoya is a bit of a jerk, but the kind of jerk that's lovable enough that you can resist kicking him in the nuts. As you go through the game, you get to meet various other characters at the school, like his class's school president, Ryo, the caretaker of the boys' dorm, Masai, and Tomoya's best friend, Sunahara, who's the kind of guy that goes around handing out his mixtape to random people at 7-Eleven.
Won't you take my hand? Nan toka me, nan chara get to do.
Like I said, the game is a slice-of-life visual novel, so there isn't much in terms of gameplay. You just experience Tomoya's life in his last year of high school as he wastes time reading magazines, wandering the streets of his town, and hanging out with the other characters. In 2015, this game got an HD re-release translated by Sakai Project on Steam, but for many years this game was a Japan exclusive, which was the case for a lot of visual novels back in the day. These games have tens of thousands of words of dialogue, which I can imagine is a nightmare to translate. One helpful tool that the HD version has for non-Japanese speakers is the Dangopedia, which is like a little dictionary that explains certain Japanese phrases and aspects of Japanese culture. I'm sure for all the mega weebs out there with 1,000 anime on their My Anime list, something like this isn't needed, but for everyone else, it's a nice tool. Speaking of anime, if you're an English speaker, then there's a decent chance that your first experience with Clannad was through Kyoto Animation's 2007 anime adaptation, which became quite popular. It was essentially the only way to experience the game for a long time unless you spoke Japanese. I watched it years ago and was a fan of it. It's the kind of show that'll make you bawl your eyes out, so be prepared. While Clannad starts off very light and fun, as the story goes on, it starts to tackle some dark subject matter, so I recommend you check out the Steam description before playing the game. One big difference between the game and the anime is that in the game, you get to choose how the narrative progresses by making choices at different points in the story. I didn't get very far in the game as I only played it for about an hour, so I can't tell you from experience how much impact those choices has, but from my pre-existing knowledge of the franchise, I do know that things can substantially change depending on what you do. I probably won't be coming back to this game personally, as like I said, I have already seen the anime, and from what I can tell, the anime covers a lot of the game's content by including story beats from the different branching paths into one connected narrative. Also, the production values for the visual novel, well, to be blunt, the game feels cheap. The game has voice acting, which is really cool, but visually it is very bare bones. There's a whole scene where a character named Tomoyo, not to be confused with the main character Tomoya, beats up these two biker guys. But in the game, you don't actually get to see it. You just read text of Tomoya describing what happened. I didn't dislike my time with the game, but again, I just don't have a big reason to invest a ton of time into it. Star Wars Republic Commando is a first-person tactical shooter developed by LucasArts, where you play as the leader of a group of elite clone troopers called the Delta Squad during the events of the Clone Wars in the Star Wars universe. As the leader of the team, you issue commands to your squad mates to get them to perform specific actions, like setting up a bomb to blow up enemies, hacking into a door to get it to open, and sniping enemies to pick them off from a distance. If you try to go in alone, guns blazing without a plan, you will probably die. This is a game where you need to work together with your team to succeed. Thankfully, even if you or any of your squad members get taken out, it isn't game over, as all of you can be revived, so long as at least one member is alive to bring you all back. It's always annoying when games continue on just fine if one of your party members die, but give you an instant game over if you die. So I'm glad that this game didn't do that. Not only is it less annoying and arbitrary, it also helps build up the camaraderie between you and your teammates. It always feels good when one of your buddies comes in clutch and saves you. I quite like this game. I see myself at the very least playing the next couple of levels. Flat Out 2 is a vehicular combat racer developed by Bugbear Entertainment, where you go head-to-head against other car racers while causing all sorts of mayhem and destruction. The amount of chaos you can cause in this game is absurd. The physics engine is pretty impressive, especially for the time. If you see an object, chances are that you can interact with it, and it can explode into a ton of different pieces. The game even rewards you for causing anarchy because it gives you nitro for slamming into cars and obstacles. You can use nitro to boost yourself forward to cause even more destruction. The game has a career mode where you start from the bottom with the junk cars even used car dealerships were afraid to sell, and participate in races and other events to earn money so you can buy better cars and unlock new events to take part in. Or you can say screw that and just enjoy the game's content in the variety of other modes that are readily available. Like bowling, where you can launch your character out of your car to knock down as many pins as you can. And the derby mode, where you and a bunch of other racers battle it out by slamming your cars into each other until there's only one car standing. If the game wasn't over the top and edgy enough, it has a soundtrack featuring music from staple rock and nu metal bands from the 90s and 2000s, like Papa Roach, Fall Out Boy, and of course, Nickelback. This is a simple, fun game that I might not come back to immediately, but I could see myself maybe playing it to blow off some steam after a long day. BioShock is a first-person shooter developed by 2K Boston, aka Irrational Games, set in an alternate universe 1960 where a die-hard capitalist named Andrew Ryan has created an underwater utopia called the Rapture. You play as Jack, a man who survives a plane crash and ends up in Rapture, which has been turned into a dystopian nightmare filled with botched surgeries, human experimentation, and just full-on insanity. Now, with the help of a man on the radio named Atlas, you must survive in Rapture, save Atlas's family, and try to get out of this place alive. You have a number of different ways to approach combat. You can use weapons like a wrench, a revolver, and a machine gun. You can hack machines to turn them over to your side, and you have special powers like shooting lightning bolts and fire. The game is fun, but honestly, what drew me into this game wasn't the gameplay. It was the art direction. The game has this really distinct aesthetic inspired by early 20th century art and architecture, notably the Art Deco style, along with 40s and 50s advertising, which it mixes with these sick underwater industrial designs. The game really draws you in with its unique art style and its impeccable atmosphere. The game can legit be a little scary at times, especially as you learn more and more about the dark truths behind this fallen utopia. This game has been on my backlog for quite some time, so I'm glad I got the chance to check it out. This is a game I plan on playing more of in the future. Peggle Knights is an action puzzle game developed by PopCap Games, where you go through the dreams of strange characters like a gopher who wants to be a scientist, a unicorn that wants to be a superhero, and a pumpkin that wants to be an artist. In these dreams, you play Peggle, which is a game where you shoot balls at pegs, causing the balls to bounce off and hit other pegs. Your goal is to destroy all of the orange pegs in the level, and to help you there are other pegs like these purple pegs which give you bonus points, allowing you to potentially get a free extra ball to fire, and green pegs which activate your particular character's special ability. For example, the gopher, named Jimmy, has the special ability to create a duplicate ball, and the unicorn, Bjorn, has the special ability to see the angle that your ball will bounce at when it hits a peg. The level designs in this game start off fairly simple, but as the game goes on, they get weirder and more complex. You'll have to deal with moving pegs, balloons, and strange peg formations. These formations tend to be based on the background art of the stage itself, which is pretty nice. Some of these backgrounds can be pretty surreal and even unnerving at times. Overall, I had fun with this one. I can see myself playing through a level or two whenever I have some downtime. Shatter is a breakout-style game developed by City, who are now known as Pickpock, where you play as a bat trying to knock balls into all of the bricks on screen, while keeping the balls from going past you, causing you to lose a life. As you go through the story mode, you'll encounter all sorts of interesting level designs and bosses. One of the things that makes this game unique is the number of really cool powers that you have. You can shoot more than one ball, allowing you to destroy more bricks faster. However, you only have a certain amount of balls per level, and if you lose them all, it's game over. Some other cool abilities that you have are this crazy barrage move you can do to deal a lot of damage really quickly, and the ability to manipulate the trajectory of the balls from a distance by sucking and blowing objects towards you and away from you respectively. Being able to dictate the ball's direction without hitting it adds so much complexity and skill to the game, but you have to be careful, because using the suck ability can also pull in hazards towards you, which can take you out of the game for a few moments if you're hit by one. Luckily, another power that you have is a shield, which can protect you from obstacles. Using the shield does come at a cost though, as you lose some of the meter you have at the top left of the screen. If you don't have any meter, then you can't use the shield or the barrage move. You can build meter by breaking blocks and collecting fragments that get released when bricks are destroyed. Shatter is a really good example of modernizing a classic game. It's kinetic, frantic, the aesthetic of the game is really futuristic and eye-catching, and the game has good music too. The game constantly keeps things interesting by introducing new brick types and new bosses that have interesting gimmicks, like this one boss who has the same powers as you, being able to shoot balls and blow objects away. This is just a fun game and I don't really have any complaints. I could see myself playing this game until I finished it. Fallout New Vegas is an RPG shooter developed by Obsidian Entertainment, where you play as a courier in a post-apocalyptic Las Vegas, Nevada. You get shot by a mysterious fellow in a spiffy black and white suit, and you wake up after being treated by a doctor named Doc Mitchell. Now, you journey out into the world to figure out who the guy that shot you was and why. At this point, you get to personalize your character, choosing how they look, their stats, and any special traits that they have. The amount of customization that this game has is crazy. There are a number of different ways you can build your character. You could be a gunslinger who relies on weapons to get the job done, a rogue who sneaks around to stealthily obtain the objects of their desire, or a smooth talker who uses their words to convince people to do what they want. By doing quests, defeating enemies, and completing other tasks, you can earn experience points, which you can then use to further increase your stats. By reaching certain stat thresholds, you can learn new perks that can strengthen your character and provide a lot more in terms of role-playing options. The RPG aspect of Fallout New Vegas is only one half of it, as the other half is a shooter. You can choose to play the game in either first person or third person, which is always a good option to have. First person is nice because you get to feel a bit more engrossed in the world, and third person is cool because you actually get to see the character that you created. One of the more interesting shooting mechanics is the Vault-Tec Automated Targeting System, aka VATS, which allows you to stop time and specifically target certain parts of an enemy's body. The game will give you a percentage of how likely you are to hit that target, and you can then automatically fire at that point, leaving whether you hit it or not up to chance. Targeting different body parts comes with different advantages and disadvantages. For instance, headshots deal a ton of damage and also can decrease the target's accuracy if they're hit, but specifically aiming for the head is less accurate than say a bigger target like the torso. Sadly, I didn't get very far in Fallout New Vegas, as this is an RPG that can potentially take dozens of hours to beat. While I only really scratched the surface, I did enjoy what I played, and I'll probably play for a few more hours to see if it holds my interest, as I am curious to learn more about this 1950s inspired post-war world, and the various factions that have risen during this time of anarchy. Space Chem is a puzzle game developed by Zachtronics, where you play as an engineer trying to deliver atoms along a set of paths. There are two paths, a red path and a blue path, and your goal is to manipulate both of them to move atoms from the input areas to the output areas. You have a kit of various tools to help move the atoms around the grid and alter their properties, like arrows which can change the direction of the path, or bonders which can bond adjacent atoms together, as sometimes you will need to create molecules that need to be delivered. This game was quite difficult for me at first. I think the problem is that the tutorials give you a big info dump all at once. By the time I was ready to play, I was overwhelmed with all that information, so I was just left to trial and error, but hey, maybe I'm just an idiot. Eventually I got the hang of it though. Unfortunately, by that point I was at the end of my 1 hour play session. Still though, I do want to go back to this game. It's sort of like Ridge Racer 64, where it's a game that I want to get better at, especially now that I've got the hang of how to play it. It's really satisfying to build a working circuit and see it all come together flawlessly. It's like watching a seamlessly flowing assembly line. Euro Truck Simulator 2 is an open-world driving sim developed by SCS Software for PC, where you play as an entrepreneur trying to start their own trucking company. You don't have a truck, and obviously you're gonna need a lot of money to buy that. So you start off by taking delivery jobs driving trucks for other companies to build up some capital. The driving in this game is painfully detailed. You've got adjustable wiper blades, cruise control, in-game radio filled with original music stations, along with the ability to play your own music from your computer, and of course, you have to worry about parking. On my first job, I figured, hey, I might as well get the full trucking experience. Parking is probably gonna suck, but it can't be that bad, right? It was awful! Thankfully, you can auto park, with the downside being you don't get as much experience. Experience is used to level up your character, giving them access to more jobs and upgrades. At the start of the game, you pick a place in Europe that you want to start in, and then from there you can branch out and explore more countries. And man, there is a lot to explore because this map is gigantic. You can't explore too much at first though, because you have jobs to do. If you want free reign to drive around, you'll need to buy your own truck first. The cheapest one is still over 68,000 euros. I didn't have nearly enough money even after doing a few missions. So I did what any sensible person would do and took out an expensive loan from the bank for 100,000 euros. I then bought myself a truck and drove around to my heart's content. While I don't personally see myself playing much of this game in the future, it's one of those games that I just have to admire and respect for how much work went into it. SteamWorld Dig is a steampunk Metroidvania platformer developed by Image and Form, where you play as a robot named Rusty in an old western mining town, as he explores the mine that he now owns after receiving the deed from his Uncle Joe. This game originally came out for the 3DS eShop, and I would always hear about the game, but I just never got around to picking it up. Thankfully, I did finally do that, because I quite enjoyed this one. It's a Metroidvania game, meaning you explore a large interconnected map. You can find all sorts of new places, bountiful treasure, and of course, new upgrades, like boots that let you run faster and a steam-powered drill that lets you destroy tough rocks, which in turn lets you explore even more parts of the map so you can find even more cool stuff. That drill uses steam, and in order to get more steam, you have to find pools of water, which is a limited resource. Light is also a limited resource, as your lantern will eventually burn out, making it difficult to see, meaning you'll have to return to the surface to refuel. Also, the game is somewhat stingy with health pickups, so you'll also have to return to the surface to get a re-up on some hearts. If you die, your loot will be left on the ground, meaning you'll have to do a Dark Souls corpse run and get your stuff back. So the core gameplay loop is go into the mine, find loot, and when you run out of resources, head back up where you can use your loot to buy upgrades so you can reach new areas and last longer in the mines. Thankfully, you don't have to run all the way back as the game has teleporters around the mine. I feel like the game was designed this way because it was originally released on a handheld, and typically you play those games in short bursts. Each visit to the mine is like a mini run that you can do for a few minutes before heading back up, shutting off the game, and doing something else. I'm playing the game on PC, but man, this would have been so fun if I played it all those years ago on the 3DS. This is one game I plan to finish. A Story About My Uncle is a first-person platformer developed by Gone North Games for the PC. In this game, you play as a man telling his daughter a bedtime story about a time he went looking for his lost Uncle Fred. On his adventure, he came across a special suit made by his uncle with a device that lets him shoot a grappling beam. You can use this beam to pull yourself to nearby areas, ride moving objects, and fling yourself over large gaps. Momentum and physics are the names of the game here. Grappling hooks are always a fun and satisfying mechanic, so building a whole game around the idea was a no-brainer for a fun time. Visually, I quite like the game too. There are some really cool looking environments, although the character models do look a little bit off at times, though that might just be because these are supposed to be like frog people or something. I don't really have a ton of comments about the game. It really is just a cool grappling hook game. It doesn't seem like it's going to be a very long game, so I think I'll come back to this one at some point and finish it up. Downwell is a roguelike platforming shooter developed by Moppin, where you play as a man named Weltaro who journeys down a well while fighting monsters and gathering gems. You are constantly falling down this well, making it difficult to navigate through the various obstacles. Luckily, you have your gun boots, allowing you to not only shoot down the enemies trying to attack you, but also slow down your descent briefly, allowing you to better control your movement. Your gun boots only have a limited amount of ammo, although you can reload them by landing on the ground, or by landing on an enemy and jumping off of them. Continuously bouncing off of enemies is so satisfying, and the game even encourages this too, because taking out enemies builds up your combo. Your combo ends if you land on the ground, but bouncing off of enemies allows you to continue your combo. Keeping your combo going allows you to rack up gems, and you can then buy upgrades and health restoring items at the shop using those gems. The upgrades in this game are pretty sweet. You've got upgrades like a drone that can fire alongside you, and the ability that makes the casings from your gunboots bullets explode on impact. Upgrades are also given to you at the end of each level. This is a roguelike, so the levels are randomized, but you'll be going through the same level themes each time. To spice things up, you can find different gun types for your gunboots in the levels, like burst fire, a shotgun, and a laser. You can also unlock new falling styles to alter Weltaro's properties, like the arm spin style that makes it certain that you'll find more gun types at the cost of being less likely to find shops, and the bouldering style that gives you more health at the cost of getting less choices for upgrades. Another customization option you can unlock is additional palettes. Downwell uses a very limited palette of only 3 colors, black, white, and red. However, with the palettes, you can change those 3 colors into different ones. Some of the palettes are pretty cool, like matcha and pastel, but others like umekobja just make me want to puke. Downwell is simply a really polished, really good game, although I personally don't see myself coming back to this one just because, well, I suck at this game. Another game that I suck at is Shadow Tactics Blades of the Shogun, a real-time strategy game or a real-time tactical game depending on who you ask. The game was developed by Mimimi Productions and is set during the Edo period in Japan, where you play as a group of the Shogun's forces, carrying out missions to stop those that conspire against him. You control multiple characters simultaneously as you eliminate enemy soldiers, eavesdrop on conversations to gain information, and work together to break through hostile forces. Each character has different traits and abilities, like the shinobi Hayato, who can grapple up to rooftops and throw shuriken to dispatch enemies from a distance. Then you've also got the samurai Mugen, who can carry 2 bodies at the same time and deliver a devastating multi-slash attack that can take out multiple enemies at once. One really handy feature is Shadow Mode. You can enter Shadow Mode to have multiple characters execute actions at the exact same time, giving you more control over how you tackle obstacles. The game gives you a lot of options for handling situations. If you pay attention, you can find alternate routes, different places to hide, and interactable objects in the environment which can help turn the tide of battle in your favor, like how I dropped a stack of wooden planks on 3 guards at once. Like I mentioned, I suck at this game. I'm ashamed to admit it, but it took me over an hour to beat the first level. Go ahead, point and laugh at me in the comments. But in my defense, this is a game that's pretty far out of my wheelhouse. What can I say? I play simple games where you jump on robots as a blue hedgehog. This game has a lot of moving parts, and you can die extremely quickly. You really have to take time to understand the layout of the map, use all of your abilities in the right places, and have your characters work together to really be successful at this. Even though I didn't do so well at the game, I still really like it. It is satisfying when all of your characters are in sync and you manage to get past a group of enemies without anyone seeing you. I'm definitely gonna keep playing Shadow Tactics. Slime Rancher is an open-world farming / monster collection game developed by Monami Park, where you play as Beatrix LeBeau, a traveler who has come to this planet of slimes to start a new life as a slime rancher. There are various slimes you can find around the world, and by sucking them up with your vacuum, you can take them back to your farm where they can live in captivity forever, endlessly producing materials for you to sell so you can grow your empire. It's a nice little cozy game, at least until you come face to face with these abominations, the tar. Every slime type has a unique diet. After slimes eat, they use the bathroom and produce these materials called plorts. If a slime eats the plort from a different type of slime, it turns into a big slime hybrid called a largo that has the same diet as both of its source slimes. However, if a largo eats a plort from a third type of slime, it creates the tar slime, a carnivorous, chaotic, evil slime that devours everything it touches, including you. These tar slime can multiply, which can get really out of hand really quickly. You'll have to use water or an incinerator to get rid of these guys. Although ironically, the one time I died wasn't even because of the tar, it was because I fell through the world. It seems like the safest strategy is to keep the different types of slimes separated. You keep the slimes in these corrals, although they can get out of them if you don't upgrade the corral's walls to make them higher. And even then, these slimes are crafty, so it's only a matter of time before they find a way out. There are other facilities you'll probably be needing, like a garden for growing food for the slimes, and of course, these other buildings can be upgraded as well. I've been itching for a new cozy game lately, and I think Slime Rancher may be just what I need. Bloons TD6 is a tower defense game developed by Ninja Kiwi, where you place monkeys with different powers all over a stage so that they can destroy the balloons that are trying to make it past you. There are all sorts of monkeys, like monkeys with bows and arrows, monkeys with fighter planes, and monkeys with superpowers. Heck, you can say forget the monkeys and just fire heat-seeking missiles. By popping balloons, you earn money, which you can then use to buy more monkeys. The more you use those monkeys, the more experience points they gain, and you can then use those experience points to upgrade the monkeys so they can get new abilities, like more damage, longer range, and faster firing speed. The monkeys get new costumes as they level up, which is a nice way to visually show the advancement of your army. As the stages go on, the balloons get tougher and a bit trickier to deal with, like balloons that are camouflaged and balloons that move faster, meaning you'll have to place more and more powerful monkeys to deal with all of those balloons. To be honest, I don't have much to say about this game. It's very straightforward. You just place your guys around the map and wait for them to do their thing. This sort of game would probably be cool to just chill out and play while chatting with some friends or something. I played on the medium difficulty, so I imagine the harder modes are a bit more involved and strategic. I might play a few more rounds of this to see how I fully feel about it, but I don't really see it as a long-term game in my rotation. Because I like you all so much, I'm gonna do a bonus game. Well, actually, it's because I thought Florence came out in 2020, but that was the Steam release. Florence actually came out in 2018 on iOS, and I had already done Bloons TD6 for that year, but that's not important. Florence is an interactive story game developed by Mountains, where you play as a young woman named Florence, as she tries to navigate being an adult, dealing with stuff like work, family, and dating. The interesting thing about Florence is that there is very little dialogue. Most of the game's story is delivered through the visuals and through a variety of minigames. For example, brushing your teeth by dragging a toothbrush back and forth with the mouse, and putting puzzle pieces together to form a speech bubble. The game gets fairly creative with how these minigames are integrated with the story, like for example those speech bubble puzzles. When Florence is first getting to know her crush, Krish, her speech bubbles are very complex with a lot of different pieces. But as she gets to know Krish better and gets more comfortable around him, the puzzles become simpler with fewer pieces, symbolizing her opening up to him. Similarly, when she and Krish get into an argument, those rounded puzzle piece connections become more rigid and eventually jagged. Despite being a game with a very simplistic art style, the overall art direction is great. In the beginning, Florence's world is very gray and dull, but once she meets Krish, his signature yellow color brightens up her life. I don't want to spoil the story, nor do I want to give away all of the interesting ways the minigames get utilized, so long story short, it's a cute game with a very down-to-earth portrayal of life and relationships. The game is really short. I managed to beat this game in like 40 minutes, so if you're looking for a really in-depth story about life, then this is not the game for you. The pacing is lightning fast, but I think it works well as the game never feels like it's dragging or wasting your time. Every chapter of the game feels purposeful. Obviously, I beat the game like I said, so I can't do the thing where I say whether or not I'd finished the game, so I guess I can tell you whether I'd want to replay it. While I did enjoy my time with the game, I probably won't replay it, only because the game doesn't really have much in terms of replay value. There are achievements, but you could get all of them in no time. I think some alternate endings or different routes could have been cool, but as it stands, Florence is a kind of one and done type of game. But hey, that was the developer's vision, I suppose. All in all though, Florence is a unique little experience and I don't regret playing it. A Short Hike is a 3D platformer developed by Adam Robinson Yu, where you play as Claire, a bird who's taken a trip to Hawk Peak Provincial Park. Unfortunately, the place has no cell phone reception, so she'll have to hike to the top of the mountain to get cell service. Claire's base moveset is fairly limited, with basic walking and jumping. However, she can use her wings to glide, allowing you to travel long distances through the air. As you journey around the park, you'll eventually find golden feathers. Each feather gives you one additional jump and lets you climb up walls for a bit longer. As you get more and more feathers, the island opens up more and more to you, and you really start to feel free as you fly all over the place. It's so fun to explore in this game. It felt like every minute I was discovering something new, whether it was treasure, a location like these old castle ruins, or a cool character. The characters in this game are super friendly. If you help them out, they'll often hook you up with some sweet items that can even further increase Claire's versatility. You can get running shoes, letting you run to increase your speed, you can get a shovel so you can dig up items, and you can get a fishing pole to let you tap into your inner angler. One of the most memorable parts of this game is the art style. It has this low poly pixelated look that makes it look like something straight off of the PS1 or Sega Saturn. But not even just that, the colors in this game are wonderful. They're so vibrant, warm, and comforting. The music by Mark Sparkling also gives off that cozy feeling. If you couldn't tell by now, I really enjoyed this game, and I am 100% finishing this one in my free time. Micro Platformer is a 2D platformer developed by Davey with 3 Ys, where you play as a little square and you try to platform to the goal of the level. That's the entire game. There's no enemies, there's no power-ups, no bosses, no music, and no sound effects. As the game's Steam description says, it's a minimalist platformer. You can jump, dash, and cling to walls as well, so you do have some special abilities to spice things up. Otherwise, it's a straightforward platformer, and as is the case with a lot of these sorts of games, the levels get really difficult, having you do precise platforming with very little room for error. Apparently there is a level creator plan for a future version of the game, but it's not included as of the time I'm writing this, and the game hasn't been updated in over 4 years, so I don't think that's coming anytime soon. This game is very simple and no nonsense, which I can respect. But personally, I prefer my platformers with a bit more flavor, so I don't think I'll be returning to this one. Toem is an adventure game developed by Something We Made, where you play as a photographer on a quest to see a magical phenomenon at the top of the Kuruberg mountain region known as Toem. What the Toem is and what it looks like is kept mysterious, but from looking at a picture of it in our Nana's photo album, we can tell that it's beautiful. She gives us a camera and we go on our way to find the Toem, stopping by various towns along the way. Unfortunately, we're broke and have no way to get to the Kuruberg Mountains, but luckily we can earn free bus rides by collecting a certain number of stamps in each town. We get stamps by helping out people in the towns that we visit. Helping people usually involves using your camera to assist them in some way, like taking a photo of a goofy looking horse picture so you can show this horse ghost what they looked like when they were alive. Yeah, this game is weird. It's got that silly Paper Mario charm, which is fitting as this game's art style is very Paper Mario-esque, with its flat 2D characters on top of 3D environments, giving off a pop-up picture book aesthetic. The whole game is rendered in black and white, which you would think would make the game visually uninteresting, but the game makes up for its lack of color with its very goofy and memorable character designs. Your character will gain access to different upgrades for your camera, which gives you even more ways to take photos and interact with the environment, like a tripod that lets you take photos remotely and a horn that can scare birds away. This is a really cute little game. It's always nice to get away from intense action and stressful platforming every once in a while to get something that's just a cozy good time. This is one game that I'll definitely be finishing. Stray is a 3D adventure platformer developed by Blue 12 Studio, where you play as a stray cat who, after getting separated from their pack, gets trapped in a post-apocalyptic cyberpunk city. Now you have to find a way out of the run-down, forlorn slums and back to the world outside. The hook, if you will, is that you play as a cat. And to the game's credit, it really does make you feel like a cat. Nothing makes you feel more like a cat than scratching up furniture, knocking over stuff for no reason, and walking all over keyboards. I don't think I've ever been more immersed. I call this game a platformer, but basically all of the platforming is automatic. At times it does feel like I'm playing a cutscene. The game is more about exploring the world, interacting with the strange robotic creatures, and learning about how the city got to this decrepit state. My hour of playtime ended around the time when it seemed like the game was ramping up. There were these monsters called Zurks that the game was hinting would be appearing soon, but I didn't get to that point. Maybe the game has combat or some more action-y portions later, but from what I experienced, it was a fairly chill, almost mundane ride. I wasn't super into the gameplay, but I did enjoy the game's music, art direction, and storytelling. I could see myself putting another hour into the game to see if it pulls me in a little more. Dredge is an open-world fishing horror game developed by Black Salt Games, where you play as a fisherman trying to make some cash by catching and selling fish to markets at the settlements that you find throughout your adventures. Fishing requires you to play little mini-games that involve pressing a button at a specific time. There is some strategy involved here, as you only have a limited amount of space in your inventory. Each fish takes up a certain amount of space, and you have to reposition the fish to get everything to fit. Each fish also requires a different type of rod or equipment to catch it. You'll need a different rod to catch coastal fish, shallow water fish, oceanic fish, and so on. And that equipment also takes up inventory space too. Not only that, but you also have to make sure that you return to land in a reasonable time to sell your fish, because if too much time passes, then the fish will rot. Speaking of time, this game has a day and night system, and you want to make sure you don't stay out too late because things get a little spooky at night. Let's just say you are not alone out on the water. There are all sorts of weird and nightmarish creatures out there. Thankfully, you do have resources to help you survive. You can upgrade your ship to make it faster and more durable. You can discover new towns to give yourself protection against the terrors of the night, and you can meet new people to learn more about the world and where you can potentially find new fish, items, and places of interest. I've had this game on my radar for a while, but I finally decided to play it, and man am I glad I did, because this was fun. It's got a little bit of everything that I find neat. Time management, resource management, exploration, and of course, a weird and unsettling world. Yeah, I'm definitely gonna keep playing this one. Duck Detective: The Secret Salami is a detective game developed by Happy Broccoli Games, where you play as a divorced private duck detective named Eugene McQuacklin. Eugene is, well, he's down bad.
Hannah! I'm a different duck now. I haven't had a slice of bread in weeks. You have to believe me!
He's divorced, he can't afford to pay his bills, and he's addicted to bread. Eugene gets called for a job to investigate a stolen lunch at a call center for a bus company. Now it's up to you to piece together the clues and find the culprit. Seeing as though this is a detective game, the core gameplay consists of you doing the typical gathering clues, interrogating witnesses, and putting all of those pieces together to figure out what happened. You put all of the different clues you find into blank spaces to solve deductions. Haha. The blank spaces have a drop down with potential options you can choose, but of course a lot of them are the wrong answers. You can brute force your way through these to some degree, but considering some of these deductions have quite a few blank spaces, you will probably have to use your brain to some extent. The game does have a hint feature to help you out, which is a nice resource to have. I think my favorite part of the gameplay is the investigation sections, where you're given a person or an object that you have to look at. You get a magnifying glass that lets you examine the subject more closely, revealing more defining traits and hidden details. It's interesting to see these simple character designs in more detail. Visually, I quite like this game. The UI is clean, the art style is very cute, and the game has a very Paper Mario-esque aesthetic to it with its flat 2D characters that waddle around 3D environments, similar to Toem. I also should mention that this game is fully voiced too, which helps to bring these silly characters to life. I quite like this one, and I'll definitely be finishing it later. Well, there you have it everyone. 30 games plus one bonus game from every one of the last 30 years. It was interesting to kind of see how video games changed over the years and what they look like at a particular point in time. It would probably be a better showcase of the evolution of games if I stuck to one particular genre or something. Let me know in the comments if you want me to do a specific genre or theme for the next video, like maybe 30 horror games in the last 30 years, or 30 indie games in the last 30 years, or whatever. In any case, this was cool. Some of these games I wasn't all that crazy about, but some of them were really unique and well made, and some of these games could potentially become some of my all-time favorites. If I had to say which games were my favorites out of the 30 plus one that I looked at today, I'd say my top 3 are Prince of Persia, A Short Hike, and Dredge. This video was a really daunting project. It took a lot of time, so if you all enjoyed this style of video, please leave a like and subscribe. And if you do subscribe, turn those notification bells on so you'll know when I upload something new. If you're interested in watching more videos where I talk about stuff, here's a video I did on the indie game boom from the late 2000s and early 2010s. And here's another video you might enjoy. That's all I've got to talk about for today though, so thanks for watching y'all, and have a great rest of your day.